A priest asked a woman as he saw her praying in church, "What are you saying to God?" And she said to him, "I'm not saying anything, I'm just listening." And he asked her, "Well, what is God saying to you?" And she said, "God's not saying anything, God's listening too." I want to talk today about how to hear God. And I'm doing this in the conviction that it is possible for every single person to have a direct and an unmediated experience of God. God is not some intellectual theory, but something which it is the birthright of every person to encounter through the spiritual practice of deepening in whatever way that happens. And we can think about how to use different languages around this, but the language that I'm playing with is the language of the senses, of sight and smell and hearing. But today I want to talk about how to hear God. And I'm talking about this through the idea of my definition that I offer of God, which is that God is everything and God is someone. So when we think about how to hear God, we can think about it through those ideas. When we think about God as everything, how to hear everything is to listen. So basically, this can be a practice of mindfulness meditation. We often think of mindfulness meditation, if we ever try to practice it, as being about concentrating on the breath, and that can be a good practice. But this is doing the same thing by concentrating on just listening to what you can hear. There are very few rooms you're in that are ever completely silent, and silence is probably not even particularly spiritually useful in some ways when you're trying to meditate or pray or go into contemplation. Actually, when you listen to the room, you can listen to the ticking of a clock or the creaking of floorboards or someone in the next room or the next house or traffic. And a practice of mindfulness meditation can be just to listen. Not to listen and interpret, like if you're hearing a siren thinking, is that an ambulance or a police car? Not to think about it like that, but just to experience the sound as it enters your ears and enters your brain, just to experience the sensation of what it is to listen, to really just listen very, very carefully and very mindfully, just aware. Spend 10 minutes sitting quietly, taking in the sounds of the room that you're in. And we can think of this as being within the body of God. I think of it as being within the womb of God. That experience each of us had as we began our life of starting within a womb, where we would have heard the muffled sounds of the body around us and the people around the body as well. So we can think of these sounds that surround us every day as being like the heartbeat of God, that we are within God's womb and we are listening to the heartbeat of God in everything that we can hear in the universe. And then we can listen with an expectation of God also being someone who may have words to speak to us, who may have communication that God desires with love to have with us. That can be hard for us to kind of imagine sometimes. And it's not something that happens easily or simply. And for most of us, even though we might sit in expectation of listening to God, it won't come very clearly at all for most of us. Yet there is that sense of we listen, and one who loves us is listening too. I think the only experience I've ever had where I felt like a word has come from God was when I was thinking, when I was quite young, what I was doing with my life, and I was in a place of contemplation in a church, and I sort of thought to myself, prayed, kind of, sometimes I think maybe I should do this with my life. And in that moment, there was an experience of kind of vibrational energy. Even the words we use, like, is that the right word? I don't know. But experience of something, of an overwhelming bodily sense of something that I heard, that I interpreted as the word yes from God. That I just felt within me an overwhelming sense of the word yes. And my life, in a sense, has been an unfolding of what that yes means. So maybe God doesn't use a lot of words. Maybe yes is a good enough word for most of us, some of the time or once in a lifetime. But it is possible, and it is significant, and it is nourishing to hear those things. And it's possible for every one of us in a simple way to hear those things. The Quakers say, trust the promptings of love and truth in your hearts. Trust them as the leadings of God. And that's what we're talking about. Trusting what we experience in our heart. And when we listen to the world as the body of God and the heartbeat of God, to trust that that can be something that is communicated to us, a sense of love, a sense of being surrounded by the body of God, and a sense of God personally, uniquely reaching out with love and having personal communication with us.